In Paris, in 1929, a magazine cover appeared with a woman behind the wheel of a green Bugatti. She wore gloves. A helmet hugged her head like a crown made for speed. Her scarf moved as if the car had just cut through the night. Her eyes did not ask permission. They looked straight out at the world, cool, expensive, untouchable. The shocking part was that the woman in the painting was the artist herself. Tamara de Lempicka had not simply painted a portrait. She had built a public image so sharp that it could travel faster than gossip. She showed herself as rich, modern, independent, and impossible to ignore. Whether every detail was true did not matter as much as what the image made people believe. That was the secret of Tamara's power. She understood that talent might open the studio door, but perception opened the doors of society. This is not just the story of an artist. This is the pattern that runs through her life. Not escape from reality, but command of the frame around reality. It is the story of a woman who lost countries, money, safety, and status, then rebuilt herself again and again until her name became its own kind of luxury. And the central question is simple. How does a woman turn herself into a brand before the world even has a name for personal branding? Tamara's early life begins in the polished rooms of a wealthy, cosmopolitan family. There were good clothes, grand manners, travel, music, languages, and the silent education of watching powerful people perform power before anyone said a word. Her childhood was not simple, and many details of her origin would later become blurred, edited, and rearranged. She claimed the version of herself that best served the image she wanted to carry. For some people, this looked like vanity. For Tamara, it was strategy. She did not want to be explained by loss. She did not want to be reduced to uncertainty, exile, or dependence. She wanted a story that sounded elegant enough to survive in elite rooms. So she shaped one. Even before she became famous, Tamara understood something many people learn too late. If you do not define your own image, other people will define it for you. For many male artists, reputation could grow through academies, patrons, or established institutions. Women often had to become their own publicists long before the art world treated them as equals. Tamara understood that visibility was not vanity, it was survival. In her youth, she traveled through Europe and saw old art not as dusty history, but as proof that images outlive people. By her late teens, Tamara had entered the glittering world of St. Petersburg society. Tamara did not enter that world shyly. She watched it. She studied it. She learned who mattered, who only looked important, and who could open the next door. At a masquerade ball, she met Tadeusz Lempicki, a handsome Polish lawyer with aristocratic polish and social promise. To a young woman who understood status, he was not only a romantic figure, he was part of a world she wanted to command. They married, and for a moment, life seemed to move along a familiar elite path. Marriage, appearances, a child, society, dinners, and the comfort of being seen in the right rooms. But history does not respect perfect entrances. The Russian Revolution tore through the world Tamara had entered. The old order cracked. Homes, titles, fortunes, and certainties suddenly became fragile. Tadeusz was arrested. Fear entered rooms that had once been filled with music. And here, the decorative society woman showed something harder underneath. Tamara did not collapse into helplessness. She acted. She used contacts, courage, pressure, and charm to help secure his release. Then she fled west with her family, carrying what she could from a life that had vanished almost overnight. The lesson was brutal. Status could disappear. Money could disappear. A country could disappear. So Tamara would need something no revolution could confiscate. A skill. When Tamara arrived in Paris after the revolution, She was not the glamorous legend people would later imagine. She was an exile in a city crowded with other exiles. She sold jewelry to survive. That detail matters, not because it is tragic, but because it shows the distance between the image she later created and the pressure she was living under. Paris did not greet her with a crown. Paris gave her a problem. How does a woman used to status rebuild when the old sources of status are gone? Her sister, Adrienne, offered the kind of advice that can change a life. Find a career so you do not have to rely on a husband. For Tamara, painting was not a hobby anymore. It became a route back to independence. She trained seriously. She worked with discipline. She studied composition, structure, the body, the face, the look of modern life. But she was not trying to disappear into the crowd of struggling artists. That was never her instinct. The left bank was full of people who wanted to seem free, poor, brilliant, and misunderstood. Tamara chose a different lane. She would not brand herself as a starving bohemian. She would become the painter of people who wanted to look powerful. She did not only ask, "What do I want to paint?" Her work suggests she was asking another question: who wants to be seen this way and can pay for it? The myth of Tamara often begins with parties, lovers, cars, and lipstick. But behind the image was a woman who worked with almost punishing intensity. In the studio, glamour became labor. She painted the modern elite as they wished to see themselves. Not soft, not ordinary, not sentimental, important. A Tamara portrait did not whisper, "This person is nice." It declared, "This person belongs to the future." That is why her work suited the age. The 1920s were not quiet. The decade loved speed, machines, jazz, fashion, new money, electric nights, and women who cut their hair, drove cars, smoked in public, and refused to shrink. Tamara turned that mood into a premium visual language. But this was not only aesthetics, it was positioning. She made her paintings recognizable. She made her subjects desirable. She made the act of being painted by her feel like an upgrade in social identity. Tamara understood that a career is not built only at the easel. It is built at dinner tables, in introductions, in who repeats your name when you leave the room, in which magazine prints your image, in which collector decides that having your work on the wall says something about them. She moved through Parisian café society with intention. She entered elite circles where money wanted culture, where aristocrats wanted modernity, and where wealthy industrial families wanted to look less new and more inevitable. Tamara offered them mythology in the language of the age. She gave women the cool authority of marble and steel. She gave men the controlled severity of power. She made wealth look disciplined, sensual, and modern. Her clients were not just customers, they were signal boosters. Every commission placed her name in another drawing room. Every drawing room created another conversation. Every conversation brought another possible patron. This is where Tamara's story becomes a leadership lesson hidden inside a glamorous life. She did not wait for the world to discover her. She placed herself where discovery was likely. Talent alone was never her strategy. Visibility was. History has often criticized ambitious women for carefully shaping their public image while celebrating the same instinct as genius in men. Tamara refused to apologize for understanding how reputation is built. Then came the image that turned her into an icon. Tamara, in the green Bugatti. Look closely at what she did. She did not show herself holding a palette. She did not show herself as a humble worker in a paint-stained apron. She did not ask to be accepted as a serious woman by copying the posture of serious men. She made herself the product, a woman in control of the machine, a woman surrounded by luxury, a woman framed like a film star, a driver, a rebel, and an aristocrat all at once. Tamara was modern. Tamara was expensive. Tamara was independent. Tamara was dangerous to underestimate. That is, image control. The car did not need to reflect the exact facts of her daily life. It reflected the emotional truth of the brand she was building. She wanted the world to associate her name with motion, status, and female command. It did what the best personal brands do. It compressed an entire identity into one unforgettable image. By the late 1930s, Europe was changing again. The glamorous surfaces of the interwar years could not hide the political darkness gathering across the continent. For a woman with Jewish ancestry, a Polish identity, international connections, and a life built across borders, danger was not abstract. Tamara had survived one revolution. She could recognize the smell of a world before it burned. In 1939, she and Kufner left Europe for the United States, presenting the move as an extended vacation. But beneath the elegance was instinct. She was repositioning before crisis trapped her. This is one of the most important parts of her story. Reinvention is not only what you do after disaster. Sometimes reinvention is leaving before the room collapses. Tamara had built a life in Paris, but she was not emotionally dependent on one city. Her brand had always been portable. Glamour, status, modernity, control. Those ideas could travel. They could be repackaged for America. So, she crossed the ocean, not as a refugee in appearance, but as a baroness, a painter, a hostess, a woman of mystery, arriving with European sophistication. In Beverly Hills, Tamara entered another kind of performance. The light was different. The houses were larger. The wealth was louder. Hollywood understood image as naturally as Paris understood style. Here, people built identities for a living. Tamara rented a villa once connected to film world glamour. She hosted parties with hundreds of guests. She did not arrive quietly. She staged herself. In America, she used the same rule she had used in Paris. Enter the rooms where influence circulates, then make your presence memorable. But the American chapter was not simply triumph. The market was different. The art world was changing. The sleek drama that had made her famous in the 1920s did not hold the same power forever. Taste moved on. New movements rose. The old glamour began to look, to some eyes, like yesterday's dream. Branding can lift you high, but no brand is immune to time. But the very image that made Tamara famous would soon become her greatest challenge. Behind the brand was a mother, a widow, an exile, an aging woman watching time do what no critic could do, soften the edges of control. Her daughter Cosette remained part of her life, though their relationship carried the complexity that often follows ambitious parents and children who grow up near greatness. Tamara's life had required movement, self-focus, and performance. Those choices created opportunity, but they also created distance. The same qualities that built her legend could wound the people closest to her. This is why her story should not be flattened into glamour. Glamour is only the surface. Under it is a harder question. What does it cost to keep becoming yourself? Every reinvention demands energy. Every stage requires a costume. Every public image leaves out something true. Tamara had survived upheaval by mastering presentation, but presentation cannot protect a person from loneliness, illness, grief, or the quiet fear of being forgotten. In later years, she lived part-time in Cuernavaca, Mexico, in a house called Tres Bambus. The name sounds peaceful, almost soft, far from the hard shine of the green Bugatti. The woman who painted herself as speed ended her life closer to stillness. Yet obscurity was not the end. The strange thing about a powerful brand is that it can sleep and wake again. In the 1970s, interest in Tamara's work returned. The world that had once dismissed Art Deco glamour began to look at it with new eyes. Fashion rediscovered her. Collectors rediscovered her. Celebrities recognized what earlier critics had sometimes missed. Tamara had not merely painted rich people. She had created a visual language of self-possession. Her women did not melt into the background. They occupied space. They looked expensive, yes, but more importantly, they looked unavailable for permission. That is why her image kept traveling. Designers saw it. Photographers felt it. Pop culture absorbed it. Decades after her peak, Tamara still looked modern because she had painted the fantasy of modern confidence so clearly. She died in 1980, and according to her wishes, her ashes were scattered over the Popocatépetl volcano. It was a final image worthy of the life she had staged, not a quiet disappearance, but a dramatic release into smoke, earth, and sky. Even at the end, Tamara understood symbolism. Tamara de Lempicka's life matters because she saw herself as material, not in a shallow way, in a strategic way. She understood that a woman could be talented and still be ignored if she entered the wrong rooms, told the wrong story, or allowed others to make her smaller. She understood that presentation is not the opposite of substance. Sometimes, presentation is the bridge that allows substance to be seen. But her story also warns us. Image can create opportunity, but it can become a prison. Reinvention can save you, but it can also exhaust you. Elite networks can elevate you, but they can also make you dependent on circles that change their tastes without warning. Tamara's brilliance was not only that she painted well, it was that she positioned well. She knew her audience. She knew the emotional value of glamour. She knew that people wanted not just portraits, but proof that they belonged to the world they admired. She gave them that proof in paint. And while she was selling them their image, she was building her own. First, reinvention is a leadership skill. Tamara lost one world in the Russian Revolution and built another in Paris. She left Europe before war trapped her and launched herself again in America. She did not wait for perfect conditions. She moved, adapted, reframed, and began again. For modern women leaders, this matters. Reinvention is not betrayal of the old self. Sometimes, it is the only way the strongest part of you survives. Second, perception shapes influence. Especially for women, perception has often determined whether talent was even allowed into the room. Tamara understood that people respond to signals before they read resumes. The room, the clothes, the language, the confidence, the network, the image, all of it shapes how talent is received. She did not leave perception to chance, she designed it. That does not mean becoming fake, it means becoming intentional. Third, talent must become visible to create impact. Tamara had skill, but skill by itself did not build her legend. She paired talent with positioning, discipline, networking, and an unforgettable personal image. She made herself easy to recognize and difficult to replace. A hidden talent may be noble, but visible talent changes the room. Picture her one last time, not as a painting on a museum wall, not as a name attached to Art Deco, not as a woman reduced to scandal, glamour, or legend. Picture her in motion, a young woman in St. Petersburg watching power glitter under chandeliers, an exile in Paris selling jewelry and deciding she would never again be helpless, a painter in a studio working past midnight while others confused glamour with ease, a woman behind the wheel of a green car she turned into a symbol, a baroness crossing the ocean before Europe burned, a hostess in Beverly Hills rebuilding relevance under a new sun, an aging artist in Mexico, still surrounded by the fragments of the life she had designed. Tamara de Lempicka did not wait to be granted an identity. She made one. She polished it until it shone. She drove it through society like a machine. She used it to survive revolutions, exile, divorce, war, changing taste, and the slow cruelty of being forgotten. And that is why her story still speaks to anyone trying to build influence in a world that judges quickly and remembers selectively. Her life tells us that the image is not everything, but it is never nothing, because before people follow your vision, they first decide what they believe about you. Tamara knew this, so she gave them something impossible to ignore. Tamara reminds us that leadership begins long before authority. It begins the moment we decide whether to let others define our story or to define it ourselves.